The Sikha we will be learning is look at the Sikha's Chelik Chavov, the first Sikha to Parshas Bay. It's a long Sikha, a lot of details to the Sikha. So I want to give a little introduction to make things easier. This is talking about the mitzvah of Kiddush HaChedesh. The mitzvah of Kiddush HaChedesh means the mitzvah of the Bezdin, the Sanhedrin, when we had Sanhedrin, this is years ago. So they were the ones that established every month how long the month is. A month is possible to be 29 days, and the next day is the first day of the next month, or 30 days, and the next day is the first day of the next month. That would depend. Nowadays, we have a calendar. It's already set, calculated from years before, 1,000 years ago. It's calculated and established, and now we have a set calendar. But then, every month had to be normally, best net to decide how long the month will be, which day will be Rosh Chodesh. Will be the 30th day, the day after 29, will be Rosh Chodesh, or the day after 30 will be the first day of the next month. And the way it was that they were waiting for witnesses, if on the 30th day they saw, Eidos witnesses came and told Bezdin, that's called Riyah, saw. They told Bezdin, we saw the birth of the new moon. Bezdin would establish that day, the 30th day, really not as the 30th, but as the first of the next month. If witnesses did not come, then automatically the next day was the 30th day remained from last month, and automatically the next day, the day after the 30th, became the first of the next month. That's how it was. If they didn't, sometimes it was possible that they had to do the calculation also and base it on the calculations of the cycle of the sun and the moon, because it all depends on the cycle of the sun and the moon. Now, there's another thing in this mitzvah. The idea is that Bezdin has to decide whether the year should be a leap year or not, which means whether the year should have 13 months, because the year depends on the sun, the cycle of the sun. The month depends on the cycle of the moon. It's not that the month is a 12th of the cycle of the sun. The cycle of the moon is completely for 1 month. But it just happens to be that about 12 months fit into the year of the sun, which is the cycle of the sun. But there's a difference in 11 days about it. So Bezdin every year have to look into it and decide, calculate and decide, should they make this year a third month or not? They had to make an extra month because Pesach has to be in Aviv, which means in the season of spring, and the seasons depend on the sun. If we would only go by the 12 months a year, so after a while, the seasons would change. In other words, you would have the month of Nisan, it could be in the middle of the winter or whatever it is. So they had to straighten out and equal out. So some years had, as we do now too, have 13 months. But it was up to the Bezdin to decide, always to calculate, to see whether we'll have, how many months we'll have in the year, etc., etc. That's generally speaking, very general, a lot of calculations here, a lot of details, but this is the general idea. Now, where did this mitzvah come from? Where in the Torah? Every mitzvah is written in the Torah. Which psukim in the Torah, or which pasuk in the Torah tells us this mitzvah? So the Rebbe starts off like this: the mitzvah lekadosh chadoshim, or lechashev shonim v'chadoshim bebezdin bilvad. This mitzvah that Bezdin is the one, and only Bezdin is the one that's mekadosh, because the din was that if the Rosh Chodesh of the next month came out the day after 29, which is the 30th day, which is turned into the first, Bezdin had to be mekadosh. Bezdin had to say mekudesh. They made it holy. They made it into Rosh Chodesh, which is a special holy day. If the 30th day belonged to the last month, so automatically the next day after the 30th is the first day of the new month, Bezdin didn't have to say. But there's a concept called Kiddush HaChedesh. Bezdin have to sanctify the month, sanctify the day to become Rosh Chodesh. So the mitzvah of sanctifying the months, and to calculate the years and the months which Bezdin could do, this is the lashon of the Rambam. Len penop from posik, that is learned out from the posik in Parshas Bay. The posik is Hashem said to Moshe, Chodesh hazeh lochem reish chadoshim. This month, which is Nisan, shall be the reish chodesh. Rishon l'machosh hashana. This should be reish chodesh. There should be a reish chodesh to the month, and this month Nisan should be the first month of the year. Zokt Rashi b'pirush b'mokemachar lifnei zeh. So Rashi in a different place, not on this posik, but he connects. It's connected to this posik that we just said. So Rashi earlier in Parshas Bereishis when the Geya to their mitzvah concerning this mitzvah of Kiddush HaChodesh, the general mitzvah of all the details is called the mitzvah of Kiddush HaChodesh. In Rambam, it's called Hilchis Kiddush HaChodesh. So the Rambam says like this, Rashi says, like this, and the first part, Posik of Breishis. Posik starts off, Breishis, Bor Elokim, David created the world, etc., heaven and earth. So Rashi says that really the Torah should have started with this Posik, Shehi mitzvah Yisrael. This is the first mitzvah that the Yidden were commanded. So since Torah is a book of commandments, a sefer of commandments, it's not stories, so why does it start with the story of the creation? When there is Masber Matam Pasuk Breishis, Rashi explains why it starts with Breishis, and Rashi says because the Eibishter knew that the Goyim are going to complain we stole Eretz Yisrael, so therefore the Eibishter started the Torah saying the Eibishter created the world. He knows who to give it. If he gave it to us, it's ours. First he gave it to you, then he gave it to us. You can't complain. But that's the answer. But the point here is not to get the answer. The point is that Rashi mentions the Torah should have started with this mitzvah, and Rashi refers to it as mitzvah Rishena, as the first mitzvah. So Rashi holds this is the first mitzvah. So it would seem that this is the first mitzvah in the Torah, the mitzvah of Kiddush HaChodesh. But the main mitzvahs, but those that count them are Svarim that go through the list of all the mitzvahs and they have an order. Rambam, for instance, the Rambam rechendig the minyan mitzvahs kesidim, and they count the order, the mitzvahs, is the mitzvah from Kiddush HaChodesh, but they need the mitzvah Rishena. By them, the first mitzvah is not Kiddush HaChodesh. Ubedafke bezeh, it's clear, and it's with intentions that this is not the first mitzvah. Uludugme, for instance, the Rambam says, mitzvah Rishena, mitzvah says that the first positive mitzvah is, he says the first, Leida she'esham alakah, shneimar anech Hashem alakecha, to know that there is a God. That's the first mitzvah. Like it says, Hashem said, Zanech Hashem alakech, I am Hashem your God. And that's the first mitzvah. Or the tam therefore is verstanding b'pashta. We understand very simply why that's the first mitzvah. But the idea, the key from kol mitzvahs is shaykh nor nochdem v'sidod the idea she'Hashem alakah. Because to know and to fulfill all the mitzvahs could only come if there is first the knowledge that there is a God. Or b'shein the b'reish halachas, as the Rambam says at the beginning of the halachas, he says, "Ados is yeseda v'amud ha'chochmas," that this idea that we have to know there is one God, the first being, that is the foundation of foundations and the pillar of all wisdom. And makes sense that this should be the first mitzvah, because you can't have any mitzvah without having that mitzvah first. Because you have to have a commander in order to have mitzvahs. So the first thing is to know that there is God who commanded you. Now, according to this, the question will be, why does Rashi refer to it as mitzvah Rishena? Why does Rashi say that this is the first, that Kiddush HaChodesh is the first mitzvah? That sanctifying the month is the first mitzvah. So the Rebbe says, simple. Pirish Rashi meint er bepashta, it's Rishena, it's werden geschrieben the Torah. According to Rashi, what does it mean, the first mitzvah? The first mitzvah that's written in the Torah. The Rambam or the others who count the mitzvah of knowing Hashem as first, because that's the seder of the mitzvahs. But as far as what was written first in the Torah is the mitzvah of Kiddush HaChodesh, that's what Rashi calls the mitzvah Rishena. But Vibaldo, but as all in Yonash Torah Zayim, since everything in the Torah is exact, Yashleimer as Chod b'Shaychet Tzemodem Gavra is a mitzvah Rishena Lady Hashem Alakah. So we should say that even though concerning the person, the first mitzvah to know that there is a God. That makes sense. The person cannot do other mitzvahs. He doesn't know there is a God who commanded us to do the mitzvahs. Ubelosher Hazal, the Chazal tell us, it's a Gemara in Brochas and also similar in Mechilte. Afrier darf sein Yikabel Olav El Malchus Shemayim and Ejenoch Yikabel Olav El Mitzvahs. The Gemara says, why is the parsha of Shema, V'haftas Hashem Alekecha, first, and then comes the parsha of Hoyim Shemayah. Hoyim Shemayah is the second parsha of Krishma, talks about doing mitzvahs. The first one talks about understanding there is Hashem and loving Hashem. So the Gemara says, you know why that's the order? Because Shema and V'hafta is Kabbalah Seil Malchus Shemayim. It's accepting the yoke of Hashem's kingship. V'hoyim Shemayah is the accepting of doing mitzvahs. What comes first? Well, obviously, before you accept to do mitzvahs, you have to accept the kingship of Hashem. So that's why the Gabba, the person, it's like the first mitzvah, no, there's Hashem. But when you look at the Torah itself, the object, we call it, but it's not an object, but looking from the Torah perspective is the mitzvah Rishena, was Metir is L'chura Gedav Zayin L'Haskal Satera. So you must say, from that perspective, which is something that Rashi says the Torah should have started with that one mitzvah because it's the first. L'Peila doesn't for some reason, which is Achedesh Azalachem, it should have started. That is the first as far as the mitzvahs are concerned. Weil die Mitzvah hat sich ateichen ikri wie Yesedi von Kol Satei mitzvahs. Because this mitzvah contains a fundamental idea of all the mitzvahs. And Mele, it's the first. So they're both true. As far as the mitzvah is concerned, as far as the person, is concerned, he has to have the first mitzvah to know there's Hashem. As far as what the mitzvahs are themselves, so the Rebbe says the mitzvah of Kiddush HaChedesh contains something that represents all the mitzvahs. Then the kudah, the point of all the mitzvahs. How? Why does this? It's a mitzvah like all other mitzvahs. So he says like this: there are a few things that is in the mitzvah Kiddush HaChedesh that is the nekuda klol, is the general idea of all the mitzvahs. And the three things are: number one, the mitzvah weist the meithen from the Sinus HaTorah. This mitzvah shows how the Torah was given, and we'll see soon how. The second thing is this mitzvah brings out the power of Torah mitzvahs. And the third thing is in this mitzvah expresses the goal and the purpose of all the mitzvahs. Like the Rebbe will explain. And he starts over the first thing. The first thing was that this mitzvah actually shows how the Torah was given. The Rebbe, and this is how he explains it. The Rebbe Nezer the Rebbe Nezer in our parsha talks about this, that Moshe did not Leib pirish lana b'Torah eich nikva shonim v'chadoshim. Torah doesn't say how we establish the years, how we establish the months. We said before, there's all calculations and always and witnesses, so many details. In the Torah doesn't say anything about it. And if it doesn't come into the spring, what do we do? Doesn't say in the Torah. Big wonder. For instance, he says, all the dinim of leprosy, that's leprosy could happen to one person sometime. And it's not always. And that the Torah goes into so many psukim, so many details. And he didn't say anything. He left out telling us how to establish Yom Tovim, because all the Yom Tovim depend on Rosh Chodesh. Every Yom Tov has a date in the month. Pesach is Tesvav B'Nisan, so you have to know when the Chodesh is. So this mitzvah Kiddush HaChedesh is the one is the mitzvah how to establish when the Chodesh is. In that, we don't find anything. And this is something very important. You always have to keep it. Pesach is forever. It's not like Metzora. Nowadays, we don't have leprosy. The name of a Pesach, Sukkah, is everything is dependent on that. It's forever. It depends when the Chodesh is, when you're not allowed to eat chametz on Pesach. And chametz is such a strict aveda that you get koros for it. Or when Yom Kippur is to know when you can't eat it, you get koros for Yom Kippur. When the Rebbe Nezer is masber, so the Rebbe Nezer explains, this is a sign that the Eibishter, when he gave the Torah, relied on what the Chachamim will tell us and what the Bezdin will tell us in every generation. And he says in order 19 that the Rebbe Nezer, in a different sefer, in different place, Nagdome, says that this is the sign that he relied on the oral Torah. Basically, what he's saying here is that this mitzvah of Kiddush HaChedesh shows us that there is Torah Shemal Peh. The Torah was given, but no matter what the Torah wrote, it's all Torah Shebiksav, and we were given together Torah Shemal Peh. Das heißt, means like this. As from the mitzvah of Kiddush HaChedesh is do aneis ha'yechocha brura v'gluya. From the mitzvah of Kiddush HaChedesh, there is a sign, which means a proof, a clear, revealed proof. A Torah b'perusha nitna. The Torah was given with its explanation, which is Torah Shemal Peh. As Torah Shemal Peh, but the Chachamim b'chol ha'deirus ha'magalagben is ein zach m'Torah Shebiksav. That the oral Torah, that the Chachamim in every generation revealed and they brought out Torah Shemal Peh, is one thing with Torah Shebiksav. In other words, this mitzvah tells us, because otherwise some people would complain. Who says there's a Torah Shemal Peh? We have a Torah Shebiksav and whatever it says in Torah Shebiksav. Now, this mitzvah is written in Torah Shebiksav, has so many details, and there's only one pasuk that says nothing about it, how to do it, what to do it. So what did the Eibishter mean when he gave us this one pasuk? Obviously, orally, he gave us the details. Otherwise, it's a joke. He's telling us, make sure to have Rosh Chodesh. How do you make sure to have Rosh Chodesh? How do you do it? So it's not possible if he didn't tell us orally. So this mitzvah brings out how the Torah was given. The Torah was given, Torah Shebiksav, but together with Torah Shemal Peh. This would be, even if this mitzvah is one mitzvah, It's one of the Tayag mitzvah, one of the 603rd mitzvah. But this one mitzvah, which is one single mitzvah, brings out the idea that there must be Torah Shebal Peh. Bifrad, the Rebbe says, especially at the Kiyum from Gora Sach Mitzvah Satei, Bechazayne verbunden mit Zmani Hashono. Especially that the fulfillment of many mitzvahs of the Torah that are connected with the timing of the times of the year is verbunden dafke mit the Kriyas Chadoshim v'chulu v'de Chacham kevegem mit Torah Shebal Peh. They're all connected to how the months are established according to what the Chacham said in Torah Shebal Peh. Pesach, Matzah, Yom Kippur, eating Chometz, eating Menshi Gesek, eating the Sukkah. So many Chalokim of Torah are connected to the establishment of Rosh Chodesh, and it's not written in the Torah. So it all must be given Torah Shebal Peh. So that's one thing. So that's the first thing that the Rebbe said, that this mitzvah tells us that there is that the Torah was given with Torah Shebal Peh. Now the second thing, what is the second thing? It shows the power of Torah. That is, I bring the mitzvah from Kiddush HaChedesh as Torah is a balabas Welt. This mitzvah shows that Torah controls the world, is the boss over the world. Where do we see it? Over the Maimer Azala Yedua from Posik Ekad of Lekim Elyon Lekil Gemer Aloi Bas Shol Eshona V'Yemechad V'Nichmot Lochim Bezdin Leibri Hapsulim Chezer V'Imlav Ein Hapsulim Chezer. This is a long thing, but I'll explain it. It says in Yerushalmi, we know a din that if a girl had a relation with somebody, she's not a psula anymore. She's not a virgin anymore, which is the gay to a certain din. She's not a virgin anymore. But if it happened before she was 3 years old, it doesn't count. Why? Because we know that if her psulim were taken away before 3 years old, it grows back. If it's taken away after 3, she's not a psula anymore. And the Yerushalmi is wondering what happens if the date of her third birthday came, and then she had relations with a man. Then Bezdin decided, because in those days, Bezdin could, till the end of the month of Odar, they could decide to make another Odar. So they decided to make another Odar, the 13th month. So turns out that she really didn't become 3, because the Bezdin decided that she's not, now, before she looked like she was 3, naturally she was 3, now Bezdin changed it. So what's her din? She had the relations after 3 before, but now it turned out that the change in it was before 3. So it says that her psulim will come back. Because Bezdin Paskin, so Bezdin, which is the Torah, controls the world, and it's based on the Posik, Eker L'Lekim Elyon, Chol to Hashem above, L'Kel Gemer Ala Deibishter finishes, Deibishter makes everything. And if the Torah said, the Bezdin decided that this year has to have a 13th month, but Mela she's not 3 yet, and even though before we said the Psulim left, the Psulim will come back. So where do we get this from? From Kiddush HaChedesh. Kiddush HaChedesh says it depends on Bezdin, what date it is, and what's going to happen. So that shows that the power of Torah. Und der Vater is mitzvah Kiddush HaChedesh, the mitzvah Shenish and Itztababa. And this explains why Rashi refers to the mitzvah Kiddush HaChedesh as the first mitzvah that Yidden were commanded. Canal, so much so that Rashi said, really, the Torah should have started only with Kiddush HaChedesh. Why? Because the first. Why is it the first? Because from this mitzvah we take out the foundation of how the Torah was given. The emun and the bemis from Torah Shebal Peh. We get the real faith and belief that there is a Torah Shebal Peh. That's the first thing. The second thing, as we said, in the Mtekev HaTorah Mitzvah, it tells us how strong the power of Torah Mitzvah is. The Mkeach has a power to change in the Metzias of the world, to change the physical part of the world. Till now, till Bezdin changed that Al Pitera, the Psulim would not come back, and she's not a Psul anymore. And the moment they changed, they made this month not the end of the year. So according to that, she's not 3 yet, the Psulim will come back. Now, before the Rebbe goes to the third thing, which we'll see later, the Rebbe goes on into this union itself. This will explain another thing. Even though the reason Rashi says, why did he not start with Kiddush HaChedesh? Why did the Torah start with Breishis? So the Rashi says, because David wants to show the power of his actions, which means that Torah wanted to show that David created the world. When they come to the Goyim claiming that Yidden had no right to take out its Yisrael, the answer is David created the world, created Yisrael, he gave it to us, so it's ours, whatever it is. But since we say that the reason is, why did the Torah not start with Kiddush HaChedesh, with the Chedesh Hazeh? Because of this reason, the Ascholah from Breishis Bor is b'mokif from the Ascholah was already Darv Zayin Chedesh Lechem. Since the bottom line is that Breishis is a substitute in the place of the beginning should have been with the Chedesh Lechem. Like Rashi says, the Torah should not have started with anything but a Chedesh Alechem. And since it changed to Bereishis for whatever reason, but since it substituted a Chedesh Alechem, is Mistaber Zogn, it makes sense. So even at the end that it started with Bereishis, there is a connection between Bereishis, which is the beginning of the Torah, with what the Torah should have started, which is a Chedesh Alechem. What's the connection? What's the connection between the creation of the world and mitzvah kiddush hachedesh? But Al Pi analysis movement, based on what we said before, we understand it. Bereishis bara Elokim is Rashi Mefarish on the first posik, where it says Bereishis bara Elokim, beginning Hashem created heaven and earth. So Rashi says that what it means is the word Bereishis means beis reishis. There are two things which are called reishis. The word Bereishis is made up of beis reishis, two things reishis. Also, the word letter beis is an abbreviation of the word bishvil. So Rashi says it means bishvil beis reishis. The world was created because of two things, which are called reishis. Rashi mefarish bishvil atayre shenik reishis darke bishvil Yisrael shenik reishis tzvose. Torah is called reishis. The posuk says in that it's the anyway the Torah the Torah is the beginning of Hashem's way, and it's created because of the Yidden. They're also called the reishis, the beginning of Hashem's crop. So Rashi says on Bereishis that the world was created for the sake of Torah and Yidden. Now, if that's the pshat, is verstandig as when Bezen paskent al Torah the Chedesh is muber. So we understand if the whole world was created for Torah and Yidden, so Bezen which are Yidden, and they paskent according to the Torah that the Chedesh is muber, it means that this month has to have an extra day. Peiltas azay mitzias elum. It actually affects the world. From the ganze Brie is beschaffen geworden zum Torah of Israel. The whole creation was made for the Torah and the Eden. So b'meila the Torah is the balabos. The Eden are the balabos over the world. So that's what his Rebbe says, that since one of the things special in Kiddush HaChedesh is, it tells you the power of Kiddush HaChedesh or Bezdin, which is the power of Torah, is connected to Bereishis. Why do the Torah have the power of creating or changing the world, the physicality of the world? Because the world was created for Torah and Eden. This is so far fine. It explains very important points in why in the mitzvah Kiddush HaChedesh there is the foundation of Torah, the two things we said, but it's not enough. From the Rinyan Abishas Bezdin is Ma'avirim Chedesh B'Suleo Chezer. In this, that if Bezdin makes the month, I gave the example before, they add a month. The same thing would be if they change the date. That if she was born on a certain day and it looked like the new month was coming and Bezdin changed it, and they made the next day, it should be part of the old month. So she was not 3 yet. But whatever it is, both examples are good. So this thing that Bezdin, when they add a day to the month, that'll make her psulim come back, is not in the mitzvah. It's not something of the mitzvah. I feel not in the relevant. It's not even something. The whole union of the Chedesh is connected to the cycle of the moon. Has nothing to do with the moon. This because of what Bezdin paskent, something else happens. So that's not enough to show. We're trying to look for the Meloshe mitzvah Sheinish in Sava Yisrael. When you say is the first mitzvah that the Yidden were commanded, these mashma seems adrinya from the Sheinish verbunden with the mitzvah. That why is it called first, which means most important? Because it's the first, because of the mitzvah. It's the first mitzvah. From them that comes out that we have to find something in the mitzvah of Kiddush HaChedesh that the mitzvah expresses what the mitzvah of Kiddush HaChedesh expresses what the whole Torah mitzvahs are. So before we said, it shows the keich of Torah, but it's the keich of this mitzvah to do something, to make something happen. But how do we find that the mitzvah itself contains this nekuda of what all the mitzvahs are? Rabbi says like this. The main idea of Torah, mitzvahs of the Torah, is to bring holiness into the world. That's the point of all mitzvahs. You take an object, a physical object of the world, and you turn it into an object of a mitzvah. You make it into a film until it becomes holy. That's every mitzvah. Now, if you look at it, this is what Kiddush HaChedesh contains. What is Kiddush HaChedesh? The roof to was Bezdin is Mekadesh HaChefse, Yeh Mesuyim Atzvish Chedesh. The fact that Bezdin takes a day, one day, and Bezdin changes that day, which is, the day is also, Chefze means an object, but it's not a physical object. It's the union of that, of the day. It's a specific day, which is a regular ordinary day. It's not holy. And Bezin changes that specific day into Rosh Chodesh, and it becomes a holy. Rosh Chodesh is Nita Yom HaMaisa. It's not a regular day of work. It's a posik in Yecheskel. Korban Meyuchad, you bring a special korban on that day, and it's all done. The Bezin makes that day holy. It says a posik that Mashiach will come. We will go to Eretz Yisrael, to Yerushalayim. We will go to Yerushalayim every month and every Shabbos, which means it's almost like Shabbos. We compare every Rosh Chodesh, not every month, every Rosh Chodesh, like every Shabbos. Even though it's talking about the future, but the Rebbe in Order 29 brings from different places, that he uses this also for nowadays. We see in the Pasuk that he changed Rosh Chodesh into a holy day. So that's what happens. So this is what all the mitzvahs are, taking something of secular, which is no holiness, a physical thing, or not a physical that you could touch, tangible, but it's a physical thing, and you make it holy. But like the Rambam says, by Kiddush HaChedesh, she'yikachu bezdin, v'yikvu eis hayim Rosh Chodesh, hu she'yeh Rosh Chodesh. That the day that bezdin will make it holy, and bezdin will establish that day for Rosh Chodesh, then it'll be Rosh Chodesh. And then the Rambam adds, she'ein ha'riyah kivas, it's not the fact that the Eidim saw the moon and B'meila became Rosh Chodesh, is because of them it's Rosh Chodesh. No, but Ela Bezdin Shomer Mekudesh Shem Shekevin. Bezdin said Mekudesh, because when they comes out that the 30th day is not really the 30th day, it's turned into the first day, it only becomes Rosh Chodesh if Bezdin says Mekudesh. And what Taka would be if Bezdin wouldn't say, the Eidim came and they saw Taka that the Levana was there already, so it seems that 30th day really is the first day of the next month, and Bezdin did not say Mekudesh. It's not Mekudesh. So we see here, the Bezdin is the one that does it. They're Mekadesh, they take this day and they make it holy. And das ist verbunden mit Kedushas HaMeides. It has to do not only with the day of Rosh Chodesh, it has to do with the holiness of the Yom Tovim. But you say mitzvah Kiddush HaChodesh, K'dei Sheyasi Yisrael Meyadi Hashonim Meyadum. As the Chinuch says, and the Rambam similar, that the main thing of mitzvah of Kiddush HaChodesh is that the Yidden should be able to do the Yom Tovim, the proper day. And the Rebbe Zokne B'Yontim Mekadesh Yisrael V'Azmanim, that's the Yontim in Shemoneh Esrei and in Kiddush, who make the brocha, Baruch Atah Hashem Mekadesh Yisrael V'Azmanim, that the Eibishter makes holy the Yidden, and the timing means the Yom Tovim. And the Gemara asks, how can we say, why do we mention the Yidden? For instance, Shabbos, we don't say Baruch Atah Hashem Mekadesh Yisrael V'Shabbos. So why do we mention Yisrael here? So the Gemara says, well, Yisrael the Kachinu Lazmanim. What makes the time holy? What makes Yom Tovim? The fact that the Yidden decided which day is Rosh Chodesh. So it's the Yidden, the Bezdin, who makes the day Rosh Chodesh, and that day Rosh Chodesh is the day that from there becomes Yom Tovim. So here we have a case where you take something secular and Torah, the Bezdin, Torah, makes it into a holy day. Yeah, Shleimat the Rebbe says you can add, the father is das mitzvah Rishonim. This is not yet. The Rebbe finishes off saying that that's why Kiddush HaChodesh is called the first mitzvah. Neis, weil sie in der Kude Klodis von allen Mitzvahs der zu peilen, in der Hefze, sie soll werden Hefze shel Mitzvah, und der Kude, so is beginnen bei der Mitzvah Kiddush HaChodesh, genau. So besides, the Rebbe says, now he's adding a point here, that till now it seems that why is this Rishonim? Because this, here you see clearly how the Torah has, how all the mitzvahs are to change the physicality, the secular things into holy. Here we see it very clearly. It's a day, if not for the Bezdin making this day Rosh Chodesh, you would have stayed this. So this is the first mitzvah, you could say, because here you see clearly what all mitzvahs are all about. But the Rebbe said it's more than that. Not only it's first, because that's going to express what all the mitzvahs are. It's also first in dinyan, in the quality of it, meaning chosh together for Neilam is beide Sachen, size manas and mokim. We know that what's called the creation, the world. Someone wants to give the explanation, interpretation, or to explain what is creation. So it's all based on time and space. That's called mokim and zman. What we're talking about here, we make holy the zman. But mokim is also one of the top things, because everything in the world is made up of mokim and zman. So the Rebbe says that even though both of them are important, a part of the foundation of creation, zman if verbunden mit mokim, we know time and space are connected. It's obvious time and space are connected. How do you measure time? By space. Even in a simple elementary thing, you see the clock move, the hand moves, the space, that makes time. So time is measured by space, and space is also measured by time. Space, what does space mean? That from here to here, it takes a minute to walk. From here to here, it takes an hour to walk. So it's connected. So anyway, time and space are connected. But if you're going to look philosophical, time is even before space. From Yeder is Havas, Kelech is Havas and Mokim, Zashina behavior like over Kedem is Havas, because anything that's created, it's a change from the way it was before. What's creation? Creation means before it wasn't there, now it's there, change. What's the concept of time? Time means there are changes. That's what, not to go into the details, but time is changes. So anytime there's a creation, the first thing is there's a change to create. So that's the time that comes before the creation, which is the place. Kommt es als kedem jeder is Havas. Ich fahre is Havas mokem, ich wenn die Metzies von der Sache, es wird noch nicht stane. So it comes out that in every creation, even before time was created, the moment you're going to create time, already this is a change. So that's the man, that's time. But das ist technin as man. So the change is what the time is all about. Das heißt, that means the erste Metzies von Welt, was von der Metzies fangen sich an alle nicht so is man. The first Metzies, first thing in the world is the concept which everything comes from it is man. Take an example, a simple example from a person. A frier kum bei ihm des man, der jem so jem und lach es an scheich seine puls bei hayem bechefs elon bei ihm ze. By a person, want to do something. First thing is want to do something on Monday. So first has to come the time, and on Monday you want to do something. So first comes the time, and in that specific time, that's when you can do what you things that you want to do on the day, or with things that you have to do with the day. So time comes before space. And the Faris Kiddush Achedesh Mitzvah Reshena. That's what this mitzvah that we said, when you make holy the day, the time is first. The first thing that we say is, out of all the mitzvahs, the first thing is, the highest is they take the yesod, the foundation of the creation, which is time, they make that holy. And this is the beginning of all existence. Then comes what people do. Then you do the other mitzvahs. So when you do any mitzvah, you take something. So something is space. Everything takes up space. So every mitzvah, you take something of space and you change it to Kedusha. But before that came the Zman, as we said. So the Kiddush HaChedesh is when you change the Zman, that comes first. That's the first inyan that's before all the other, it accomplishes the same thing that all the mitzvahs do, but it does it in the first thing that's in before any creation, before anything. And that's why this is the mitzvah Reshena, this is the first mitzvah. The Rebbe says this is still not enough. Kiddush Shem Neshchedesh, your best name in Mekudesh, when we say that Bezdin makes the day holy by saying Mekudesh holy, is even when they used to wait for the Eidim to come, and the Riyah, that's called the Riyah, and they waited for that, not always did they have to say Mekudesh. For him, they only say Mekudesh if Rosh Chodesh is the 30th day. In other words, if 29 was over, the 30th day is a question. Will it be the last day of the previous month or the first day of the next month? So if it turns into the last day, the first day of the next month, then Bezdin has to say Mekudesh. When the Shchedesh is B'Yem Lamed, if the Shchedesh is the 30th of the last month, that becomes the first day, Bezdin says Mekudesh. Or name a Kachin Alaylariyah. The Kiddush is only if it happened like this. But if the Eidim did not come and the 30th day remained the last day of the previous month, so the next day is automatically the Shchedesh, and Bezdin doesn't say Mekudesh. So how could we say that the whole union of Kiddush HaChedesh is because Bezdin says Mekudesh? So here we see Bezdin with the Klolim of Torah have the right to change the day by them saying Mekudesh. Not every Chedesh they say Mekudesh. And the second thing, in their mitzvah from Chedesh Zelachem is Nichlal Das Rambam Meich Lachashev Shonim V'Chadoshim Bezdin. If you look in the Rambam, in this mitzvah of Chedesh Zelachem, also includes not only saying on Rosh Chodesh Mekudesh, also includes the Bezdin has to calculate the years and the months in the Bezdin. And of them, the question is how the years should be. Should we have an extra month or not? That's not called Kiddush. That's called Ibur. Ibur means regular, pregnant. Is there extra month in the year? Nit Kiddush Shonim. We don't say it's Kiddush Shonim. So the whole thing of Kiddush HaChedesh is the Kedusha that we bring into the secular thing. So by when Bezdin said Mekudesh, true, but a lot of other things, not always did the same Mekudesh, even on a Shchedesh. Certainly didn't say Mekudesh when they decided to add an extra month, which came through the Bezdin. And that's part of the mitzvah. A third thing, late in Rambam, as Allah Mesh Messina Hilsha, Bisman Shes Hedrin came up here, Bisman Shen Shots Hedrin came up here, Chesh Bnazeh, Shon Machashvim Behayim, Venis Kotten Liria, that the Rambam says, Halacha Mesh Messina, the Ebish told Mesh Rabbeinu, that when we have a Sanhedrin, we establish Rosh Chodesh based on seeing the moon. When there's no Sanhedrin, we establish it based on the calculations that we do nowadays, and we don't care about what people see. So according to the Rambam, this that we calculate when we have no Sanhedrin and we decide when a Chodesh is by calculation, that's part of the mitzvah of Kiddush HaChodesh. Und demult is man nicht Mekadosh Kanal, or a Mekadosh Kanal. And that, not like, we don't say Mekudesh when you do it al pi cheshbon, even if it comes out to be the 30th, not the 31st. So nowadays, we don't say Mekudesh, and that's part of the mitzvah. If we say the whole purpose, greatness of the mitzvah is that we, Bezdin is Mekadosh, we see here a lot of details of this mitzvah has nothing to do with the Bezdin saying Mekudesh. So there must be something deeper here. Das Verstehen V'Hagdim was the Rambam. Excuse me a second. The Rambam says that when Verstehen V'Hagdim was the Rambam and the Rechem the Mitzvah, in Minyan HaMitzvahs, will understand this by first bringing him. When the Rambam counts the mitzvah of Kiddush HaChodesh in the list of the mitzvahs, Zokter dem Loshen, there the Loshen is, Kinal, like I said before, Lekadesh Chadoshim, Lechashev Shon Chadoshim, to be Mekadesh, to sanctify the months, and to count, to calculate the years and the months. So he does use the word Lekadesh. But in the Halachas Gufa, this is all, in the beginning of the Rambam, there he has the list of the mitzvahs. That's how he writes. But in the Halachas Gufa, when it comes to the actual Halacha, Zokter Betchilas Hilchos Kiddush HaChodesh, so he says in the beginning of Kiddush HaChodesh, he writes like this. Mitzvah says, Achaz Rambam always, before every chapter about every chelik of halachas, the Rambam tells us which are the mitzvahs, positive, negative. So the Rambam writes, there's one mitzvah says, there's one positive mitzvah, and is, the mitzvah is to calculate and to know and to establish which day is the beginning of every month, of the months of the year. Doesn't mention the word Kiddush here at all. Now, there is a bifnim halachas. Then when he goes into the halachas themselves, he says, mitzvah says in the Torah al Bezdin, the mitzvah says in the Torah on the Bezdin, sheyachshav v'yedem yira yirei chala yira. They should calculate and know if the moon will be seen or not. Und sagt nicht dem Teichen von der mitzvah is lekadosh HaChodesh. He doesn't say the mitzvah is lekadosh HaChodesh. In one place he does, but the other places, he doesn't even mention the word Kiddush. The tam bepasht therefore is the simple reason is because this that we establish the months and we calculate the years to add a leap year, make it a leap year or not, according to the calculation, is nichla litanam the mitzvah in Kiddush HaChodesh. It's part of the mitzvah Kiddush HaChodesh. Nit nor the kvias v'kiddush al pi ariyah b'zman sheyesh Sanhedrin. Not only when we had Sanhedrin and they had to establish the month based on witnesses seeing the moon. Not only that, the other things are also part, which means things which are not Kiddush. So he's explaining why the Rambam doesn't mention in the halachas that the mitzvah is to be Mekadosh the Chodesh. Because if you'd say the mitzvah to be Mekadosh, we're limiting into the Kiddush, and that only happens only Kiddush HaChodesh when the Eidim came, etc., etc. Obviously, the Rambam learns that calculating the months and calculating the years is also part of the mitzvah. That's why the Rambam didn't use the word Lekadosh, because there's no Kiddush there. The Bezdin doesn't say anything. We have to understand. For was Doctor plays dominion in the mitzvah says but why does he do that? Why does he, when he comes to this mitzvah, he only mentions the mitzvah of calculating and knowing and establishing when he's not in the mitzvah the meaning from Kiddush HaChodesh. Why doesn't he also mention separately? But he should mention there that the mitzvah includes the Bezdin should be Mekadosh the Chodesh. Bezdin should say Mekudesh. Why doesn't he mention it? So the reason he doesn't mention it because he's talking about the other things, about calculating the date, has nothing to do with Kiddush. But this he doesn't mention the word Kiddush in this mitzvah at all. Rabbi said the pshat could be like this: the ganze bria is not b'shvil Torah b'shvil Yisrael. As we said before, the whole creation is for the sake of Torah and the sake of Yidden. But das meint bechol yon abriya shmayim v'oras v'chol tzvom. This means in everything in the creation, everything, heaven, earth, all the things around it. Und nicht nur das havazere bechlal, das ist a ständige Sache. Not only when it was created, is bishvil because of the Yidden, because of the Torah. Not only that, it constantly is there. It exists constantly. Why is there heaven and earth and everything in the world? It's for this, for Yidden und Torah. Und der Weide von der Jiden besteht in dem, so da bringen Bepel und Megala sein, der Bishvil Atere, Bishvil Yisrael und der Bria. What's the job of a Yid? So we said before, to bring Kedusha into all the physical things of the world. But the Rebbe adds another point now, not only to bring Kedusha. By bringing Kedusha into things, or even not bringing, but what we're doing is we're bring out into the open that everything in the world was created for the sake of Torah and Yidden. That's what the job of a Yid is. The world was created for the sake of Torah and Yidden. But we look at it, we don't see it. The Eibishter gave us a job to be megala that, to reveal that. When a Yid is mekayim a mitzvah mit a chayfish shebeila, when a Yid does a mitzvah with any object of the world, wird that is ausgeführt den Beschwil der Matoras Abrief von der bestimmte Sach. So that, what happens? It becomes holy. But besides that, what happens is, this brings out that we are fulfilling the purpose of this thing. Why is this thing existing in the world? Why was it created? Why is it existing? For the sake of Torah and Yidden. So when we do a mitzvah with it, we're bringing it out into the open. Aziz b'shvil Torah b'shvil Yisrael. So you see, you make a mitzvah out of it, that the Torah and the Yidden do. So that brings it out. And therefore it becomes an object of mitzvah because we bring it to its purpose. And it comes up. For example, when a Yid macht von Eir Rabbi Meklafas, Seveteret Film Mezuzas, when a Yid takes leather, skin of an animal, and makes it into parchment to write the Seveteret Film Mezuzas, wer durch dem durchgeführt Matoras Brias Eir Rabbi, es wird von dem Klafa Cheft der Tere Begoli. So this brings that the purpose of why this skin of the animal was created comes into truth. It shows, that brings out, it's Megala, the Gilui, the purpose of the parchment, it turns into Chefsef Teire, which is why it was created. The Baldazir's man is anibra. And as a zeich in the game, it sees as man as a b'shvil Torah b'shvil Yisrael. So therefore, everything in the creation is for the sake of Torah and Yidden. Every part of the creation, time is part of the creation. So it's self-understood that time is also there. Why is there a concept of time? B'shvil Yisrael b'shvil Torah. That's the real purpose of the mitzvah of Kiddush HaChedesh. To them was Yidden seine Mekadosh Chadoshim. Through Yidden making holy, sanctifying the months. Resh Chedesh u'meyadim. Rosh Chodesh is a special day, Yom Tovim, that came through this mitzvah. That reveals that the true reason, why is there time for the Torah and Yidden? Like David says in Tillim, also he made the moon for the Yom Tov, for the holidays. And the Rebbe says it means he made the moon. Why did he make a moon? So there should be for holidays. So the purpose of the moon is for the Yidden. What's for the Yidden? For the Torah and Yidden. When do we bring out the purpose of the moon? When we make Kiddush HaChedesh, so we're Mekadesh, a mitzvah which is connected to the moon. The kavan is not blaze nachefetz mesuyim as nim soll ze durchführen matras briosi. The kavan is the sufta that the meiste sein der ganze brie bechoppert. We say the whole creation is all for one reason, to bring out in the items, in every item of the world, its purpose for the sake of Torah and Yidden. But it's not only that in that object that we cause it, when we bring it out, it's only for that object. But this affects the whole creation, every detail. Anything that helps out the Yid in his Aveda, so it's not only anything that you do make a mitzvah out of it. Anything that helps a Yid serve Hashem in Gashmias, that is its purpose. So it brings out this purpose. So what he's saying is here, so Zman is also there. And what the Rebbe is going to explain, that's not only the day of Rosh Chodesh or Yom Tov that you make holy, brings out the purpose. He wants to show that the whole concept of time from beginning to end is all for the purpose of Torah and Yisrael. How? And that's the mitzvah of calculating every month. And we'll see. Und das stellt sich in Kamadargis, Machshir Mitzvah, when you say there's something that helps out the Yid to do his mitzvah. So that is expresses, brings out the Gilui, how it's filling its purpose, why it was created. And there are a lot of levels here, the Rebbe says. Machshir mitzvah, certain things are only a preparation for a mitzvah. Machshir lo machshir, preparation for a preparation. Some things, like the example he gave before tefillin, becomes itself holy. But then there are certain things that you do, like imagine if a person would make a knife in order to be able, or make a pen in order to be able to write Sefer Torah. Making the pen is not part of any mitzvah, but it's called a machshir. Sometimes you need something else to make something else in order to make the pen, in order to write. That's a machshir l'machshir. But all that, when you do that, it brings out the purpose of why it was created. There is a nochman of so just like it's in every thing in the creation. No matter, as long as it helps out in serving Hashem, it is fulfilling its purpose and megalit the purpose. Same thing concerning time, and even more. Adi Ashlomas, Torah Sabriya from the Chotsh Hashana, that the complete purpose of the creation of the months, it need blaze it's not only when you make holy, sanctify the Rosh Chodesh or sanctify the Yom Tevin. But says Yomim is Yomim b'Chodesh, specific days in the month. But when es wird der Hert in dem ganzen Hemshech Azman, ich lacher Rosh Chodesh the Mishvir Atei B'Shvil Yisrael. What you need to do is, what has to be, that time is not only the day of Rosh Chodesh. That day you sanctify Yom Tov. What about the days in between? It's also time. So there also is a purpose for the sake of Torah and Yidden. That you have to fill out. And those of them, how do you do that? How do you bring that to its purpose? Mm-hmm. That comes by business mekayim the mitzvah says the chashiv ul leida but the kveya beis yem tchilas kol chedesh chotsh hashana. That comes by Bezdin calculating the time. Bezdin calculates and looks which day will be the Chodesh, which day will be Yontiv. All the calculation they make, that means that they have to look into all the details of time. All that, when you use that, even though it's not a mitzvah, the kedusha that comes is only when you're mekadesh. But all that is for the sake of being able to do the mitzvah. So that shows how time was created for the purpose, sake of Torah and Yidden. But in order to decide when is Rosh Chodesh, Bezdin has to know and calculate all the detailed calculations from Halach Halavana, how the cycle of the moon, etc. They have to know how the stars go, all kinds of things they have to know. So when they calculate all that, they're calculating time. Das heißt, it means like that. They're pulling, there's man for Chotsh Hashana do the Kviz for Kiddush Chodesh. In addition to the fact that the time of the month that you make Rosh Chodesh and also the Yom Tovim. But if it would be only that, there's time in between which has nothing to do with Kedusha. Because in them Meifon is there's manship in the time place via men hechshet to Kedusha as man for the main. So according to that, when you calculate, so you have to calculate all the days. So they're all a machshir, which means it's all a preparation to be able to do the mitzvah of Kiddush Chodesh. But the days rein Rosh Chodesh, we had the shona davon haben und wissen, im ganzen Hemshech Azman von dem Chodesh, because in order to make Rosh Chodesh and the Yom Tovim, you have to know the whole Hemshech of time from that month. But the Rebbe says noch mehr. Der etzem cheshbon was Bezdin yachshem v'yedem yiroya yireach. The mere calculation that Bezdin knows and calculates to know if the moon will be seen, what the time is for a Chodesh. But those are doch when you get them ganzen Hemshech from Halach Halvana for the ganze Chodesh. That for that you need to know the whole month. You have to know how the moon goes around the whole month. Is a tale from the mitzvah Sesa Gufa. That's part of the mitzvah. That's the Chiddush the Rambam. The Rambam said the mitzvah is, and he didn't mention Kiddush Chodesh, because there's something even deeper than that. The mitzvah is to calculate all the whole month, all the months, the whole year, to calculate everything. The mitzvah says is not nor the mekadosh zayin dem tag von a Chodesh, nor the yachshav of a. It's not only the day sanctification of the day for a Chodesh, it's the calculation and the knowing. So it comes out because of that, as in dem ganzen Hemshech Azman Gufe steht begolade b'shvil Torah b'shvil Yisrael, that in the general concept of time, of all time going, you see clearly here that it's for the Torah and the Eden. Here you have something that becomes a mitzvah. So if it wouldn't be a mitzvah, you could say it helps you to do them. If the mitzvah is only the sanctifying the Chodesh, it helps you do. So you have to calculate all the day. It's only hechsher. The Rambam is telling us deeper. The mitzvah says is to calculate. So the mitzvah says is get involved with time, which is the cycle of the sun, the cycle of the moon, and everything. And that's the mitzvah. Shleimer, as eich mit tam is mitzvah kiddush achedesh mitzvah rishon shesabah Yisrael. And this is also a reason why this is considered the first mitzvah that Eden were told. In the beginning, we gave two svaras. One because it tells you Torah Shemal Peh. The second one, it shows you the power of Torah to change the Gashmias. But now, because of this, we'll understand another point why. The B'shvil HaTorah, B'shvil Yisrael, in Yonah B'ri B'chal, is nid be'if in Yosher, B'gola, B'chala B'ri Kula. The fact that the Torah, that the world was created, everything in the world was created for the sake of Torah, the sake of the Eden, is generally not revealed. You don't see it direct. There are objects which they themselves become mitzvahs, like object of tefillin. Or the tashmish kedusha, tashmish mitzvah. There's two categories. Some things become tashmish mitzvah. It's only usage for a mitzvah. Some become tashmish kedusha, but they're themselves in a high level. Or the lamata mazeh. Sometimes there's less than that. If he does his physical things, eats and drinks for the Shem Shemayim, for the sake of Hashem, he should have koyach, energy to daven, to learn. Or like the pasuk, you should know Hashem in everything that you do. So it's also something that you're using it for the mitzvah. Certain things as only a preparation. Or a preparation to preparation. See, noch weiter, could be even further away. These as Be'ef Yosher, Be'ef Golos, in talking kesher zwischen Zeh mit Tiden and Torah. Could be in such a way that when you look at them, there's no connection in these certain things with Yidden or Torah. Und nor, sometimes could be that the only with connection you see, durch Apule mit ein Prat von der Min wird an Aliyah ganze Min. If you do a mitzvah with one thing, that makes that type of thing, all the things, like if you give money for tzedakah, it says all the money in the world gets an aliyah, gets elevated. Or he brings a derech de Alter Rebbe, Masber in Tanya, Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, concerning the karbonis, sacrifices, as durch hakrovas beimachas, ayikol achayel Hashem, when you brought one behemoth, all behemoths in the world had an aliyah, elevation. And when you took flour and you made a korb mincha, and you mixed it with oil, so all of the flour and the oil in the world elevated. More even by tzedakah, like we said, with the chemish ma'ili mikolar b'yodas l'Hashem yismuchim shiftis barach. We take a fifth off, so it's not only that this money becomes special, has an aliyah. Everything becomes an aliyah. So what comes out by everything else? There's sometimes things which they're not part of the mitzvah, but they help you do a mitzvah. But when talking about kiddush achedesh, that were the mitzvah is to calculate the time. But state the mitzvah kiddush achedesh, and then was bezent at l'chashav v'leidem v'lekvei beis yem tchilas kol chedesh v'chot shashon. You have to calculate everything to see which day of the month will come out to be Rosh Chodesh, etc., etc. The mitzvah, that's called the mitzvah. The mitzvah and the pula von Eden, Besen, is in dem ganzen Zman achedesh b'fim Yosher. So the Eden, which is the Besen, they get involved in the mitzvah, but when they think about the days between the Rosh Chodesh and between Yontif, and these are days which help them calculate, and that's part of a mitzvah. So you can imagine what the mitzvah of Kiddush HaChedesh is, how special it is. That's why it's the first one. This expresses how we could bring out the purpose of everything is for the sake of Eden and the sake of Torah, and that is through mitzvah Kiddush HaChedesh. Had it been just the mitzvah of being Mekadosh the Chedesh, sanctifying, it's also, we have said before, reason that's the first mitzvah, important mitzvah. Here we see even more. This is something that Zman, which is the beginning of everything, Zman, when they calculate the Zman, this is part of the mitzvah. Rebbe says, according to this, you could explain, if you look in the words of the Rambam at the beginning of the halachas of Kiddush HaChedesh, the Rambam says like this: the years that we calculate, we count, are the years of the moon, the years of the sun. Like it says, Shomer Chedesh Aviv. You should be careful with spring, the month of spring, which halacha means like this. Why do we have to add an extra month certain times, every second year, third year, whatever? Because otherwise it'll come out of Chedesh Nisan, because there's a difference in 11 days. Chedesh Nisan might be in the middle of the winter, won't be in spring. So it says the years, we counted the years of the Chama, and it quotes the Pasuk. The Pirush HaPoshem is the simple pshat the Rambam is, connection, continuation. He starts off saying, the months of the year are from the cycle of the moon. A month is not a 12th of the year of the sun. Your Chod Shalavana. The Rambam's Lashon is Ein Chadoshim Lechama ve'Ein Shana the moon has nothing to do with years because the cycle 29 and a half days, 29 and a half days when it comes. It's all nothing changes. One cycle is 29 and a half days. By the sun, there's a cycle that goes 365 and a quarter days. There's no such thing as months. The fact that we have 12 months in a year is just turned out that it's almost the same. And because it'll be off in 11 days, we add a month. So he says, but the Rambam says that the months are not a 12th of the year of the sun. Months are the Lavana thing. Months are the Lavana. From the Erech 29 Tag, it's about 29 and a half days. That's what the month is. So that's what the Rambam said first. Is of them in the Rambam Mamshich. So the Rambam continues in what we called it before. As nevertheless, Pesach was since even though they're two separate things, the months are counted separately, the year separately. But since the din is that you have to have Pesach in the spring, and the seasons happen through the sun, to the way the cycle of the sun. The year of the sun, which means the cycle of the sun is about 11 days longer than a year of the moon. In other words, if you count 12 months of the moon, will be 11 days behind the cycle, the full year cycle of the sun. That's when it comes to count the years, we have to calculate should fit to the sun. The father is that's why every 2-3 years we make an extra month. The Rambam is mashim aloch like the Rambam explains further. But the Rambam is mefarish and divided the keprokim as advarim sheneikesh maapim b'shvilim k'shiyah shanish nechama. He says later there are certain things that because of that we make a leap year. Today that the years should fit to the sun. That's what seems Poshup Pshat Rambam. Pashtas Losh Rambam is a mashma. If you look at the words simply, seems ados is nit nor to live mea days. At Pesach zalzayim bisman noviv. But the Rambam said the years are the years. Chodshi Hashana is the years. Hashana shnei achama, the years of sun. So till now we learned it has nothing to do with the sun. It's just because Pesach should be on the right time. That's why we do it. But in Lashon Rambam, it's not only because of the holidays, Yom Tov, and that's why we have this. As Pesach zalzayim bisman noviv. Pesach should be in the spring. He doesn't even mention the halacha here concerning Pesach. He just brings the pasuk says, "Be careful with the year, with the month of the spring." It means if you look further, you should make sure that Pesach is in the spring. But the Rambam doesn't even mention that. So the Rambam seems to be saying, seems saying the year, which is a sunny thing. So the year al pitera is the year of the sun. That means the Sadina the Shana B'chlal, it's a concept of the year. As a zone, it has to be years of the sun. Where we know that because it says you have to be careful with the season, etc., etc. But from the Rambam is mashman that the year which has to do with the sun is the year by a Yidden. The year according to our calendar is a year of the sun, which it's not so l'chura. We have to understand this. The truth is that after every 19 years, it evens out because we have different leap years within the 19th cycle. So at the end of 19th cycle, they even out. The end of 19 years of the sun fits with the 19 years of the moon because we add from time to time an extra month. And at the end of 90 years, the year of the sun and the year of the moon come out equal. The Rambam says that if you count the days of the month, so every 19 years, it'll come out. There will be no, like this, every year, if you have 12 months, there's 11 days left. But after 19 years, with adding the different leap years, there will be no difference between the sun and the moon, and there'll be 19 years of the sun, 19 years of the moon, besides 1 hour and 485 parts, which are different cheshbonos that we have. So it comes out that they even out. So there is a connection between our counting years to the sun. But so at the end of 19 years, you can say, oh, we have 19 years of the sun because it's the same way as 19 years of the moon. But if you look at every year separately, has nothing to do with the sun. Every month, separately, has nothing to do with the sun. So it's not this year of the sun, which is Shin Samach Yom is 365 days, nor 12 Chot Shalabona. A year, as a year in itself, is by us 12 months of the moon, which is Shin Nun Dalad Yom, 354 days, or the Dreitze Chat Shalabona. Or if there's a year which has 30 months, Shin Pegimel Yom, it's 383 days. But every year separately has nothing to do with the cycle of the sun. And the question is, why does the Rambam say this? The year of the sun, the year is according to the sun. It's not true. We try to make it work out that it should fit with the sun because of Cheshire. But the year is a separate thing. Our year is, our calendar is according to the moon. So we should say there's a year of the moon, which is 12 months, which is 11 days less than the sun. But this we said before, you could say pshat like this. Now, since we said before, the whole purpose of why is there mitzvah kiddush hachedesh to reveal the purpose of why there was created time, that is because of Yidden and because of the Torah, as a svert Torah can see is that the time should become a Torah concept. His movement was the Rambam is Madgish Ashonish and Machashmesh Neacham. Now we understand why the Rambam stresses that the year that we count is a year of the sun. While the Kavone is pale under the mitzvah in Yede Pratasman, because the mitzvah is that every detail of time we have to have an influence that it should be connected to Torah, which fulfills its mission, so to speak. Nicht nur in dem Chelik fürs Mann für Chedesh, was ist verbunden mit Siva Valabone. Not only the part of the month which is connected to the cycle of the moon, which is why the month is the cycle of the moon. Nor Eichen dem Zman für Shona, was in verbunden mit Siva Vachama, wo ein Levone Shona Klal. The sun, the Levone has no year. But what's the union of a year? It's 12 months, which is be'erech similar to the one cycle of the sun. So if we're going to say that the year is the year of the moon, nothing to do with the sun, so it comes out that the sun remains throughout all these years, nothing to do with Torah. What we need is that even the cycle of the sun has to do with Torah. The mail is nicht genug, das rechnen, das kufes chulit, mahalach Hashemesh, beleist, lu bewiesen, wenn zu meist sein, achei de shiver. So it's not enough that we have to calculate and know the cycle of the sun in order to know when to add an extra month. Pesach and Chedesh Nissen should be in the spring. That's one detail in the months that we want. Pesach and Nissen should be in the season of the spring season. What we need is that time, every aspect of time, the aspect of the year time. The real year time is the sun. But we need that also to be a Torah-dike thing in order to show that that is the purpose of the creation of that. But durch dem kommt there's by doing that, showing how the cycle of the sun has to do with Torah, that shows the purpose why it was created. That's when Besen count. In other words, every month, Besen counts the months, looks over what's with the sun, and they look into all the days of the sun, of the year of the sun. So it comes out that the year calculating the year of the sun is also connected to Torah, because the Rambam says you have to calculate the year that we calculate, even a regular year. We look at it, how is it with the sun? So the sun's cycle, the year of the sun, is also connected to a mitzvah of Bezen. But the Far gewinnt to Kamadin mitzvah Torah was eine verbunden b'shnas achama. That's why we find certain things in Torah, certain mitzvahs which are connected to the lunar year. No, to the solar year, connected to the sun. We find mitzvahs, which is Shin Samachayim, the 365 days. For instance, Kteres was always a Nasis, und jeder Yor und alle Yoren, Shin Samachayim. We say in davening every day, the Kteres that they made. So they made 365 money at the beginning of the year. For what? Keneged Yemei Sachama. For the 365 days of the sun year, of the solar year. And what happened? What did they do? The pale, there was only 354. What did they do with the rest over? The Alpha P was durch dem der noch Peter sein, die Shiraim. All of it that they made in the beginning was holy. You couldn't use it for anything. So what did they do? Whatever was left over, they had to use it again for the next year, but they couldn't because every year you had to buy all the kabbanas sibur, all these kabbanas from the new money that you collected. So what would they do? They would pay it, which means they would, the shirayim, whatever's left over, they would redeem. And they would take it down from being holy before and make it into secular and take money for it. And with that money, that new money, they would buy it back and they would use it for next year. But in order to know this, whatever is left over, you have to push it, count the cycle of the sun, because it's going according to the cycle of the sun. What is the purpose? Why is this like that? Because the cycle of the sun is chelik of zman. And we have to have that chelik of zman also show its purpose, that is for the sake of Torah. So there is a mitzvah in connection to the cycle of the sun. So the year of the sun on its own is a Torah dike thing. Now is ich moving the keshet zwischen Posel bebreishes keich ma'asig elame los it nachas game mit achit shelchem mit tzarsein Yisrael Yisrael. Now we'll understand also the connection between the Torah starts with Breishis, the creation of the world, and the reason is to show keich ma'asig higid lam, to show the Eibishter's keich that he said, and that's connected to the mitzvah Rishayna, which this is a substitute of the first mitzvah that the Eibishter commanded the Yidden. Okay, now Siv Gimel, like we said in the beginning, Siv Gimel had the zwei Nyonim HaMashaychas zwischen sich. Breishis and Chedesh Elochem have a connection. What's the connection? Now we'll know better. The Rinyan from Keich Ma'aseh Yigad Lamed Losit Lam Nachas Geim is Kibush Eretz Yisrael. What's Keich Ma'aseh Yigad Lamed? As I said before, the Eibishter knew that the Goyim are going to complain, you conquered Eretz Yisrael, you're thieves, you took it away from us. So the Eibishter started right away. He said, say, the Eibishter created the world, he gave it to them, gave it to us. So what is the Nachlas Geim? What is Keich Ma'aseh Yigad Lamed in the beginning of Bereshis? Is talk about Kibush Eretz Yisrael. Conquering Eretz Yisrael. Conquering Eretz Yisrael is Maramis Vaisleichep Nevikishua. Conquering Eretz Yisrael is also connected to the pasuk where it says Vikishua, pasuk in Bereshis, the Eibishter created Adam Rishon. He said, "You conquer the world." What does it mean? Conquer the world. You transfer the world to the right kibush from Gashmis Elam. That you should conquer the materialistic of the world and change it into Ruchnias. Eden nemes yarein. The Eden conquer it. We take it in. Umachan it from Kedusha, and they make it holy. Derech Eretz Yisrael, Eretz Hakeda, Eretz Yisrael is holy land. This haste, what does the conquering Eretz Yisrael represent? Hamshachas Hagdusha Imokim, bringing holiness into place. Conquering Eretz Yisrael is a place which is not holy, they make it holy. Represents, bringing holiness in everything in the world. This connects to Achedesh Zelochem, which we said was Sinyoni, Hamshachas Hagdusha in Zman. That's bringing the holiness into time. As Alpha people's man is Achelik from the Bria, even though time is part of the creation. And it's a set creation. You can't make it longer or shorter. When the Shaykh Bigdor of Overhaven was it B'Shabbat Solomon, and it has Gedorim. It's past, present, and future, and that's the same to everybody. You can change it over and make a concept of Torah mitzvah out of it. And not only the months of the moon, which we know Yidden count according to the moon. The father design and it says because we are similar to the moon, just like the moon goes ups and downs, there's open and then it gets smaller and bigger. We also are up and down, but whatever it is, it's not only the moon. Also, not only because of the time that's connected to the holidays, even the years of the sun. The sun is connected to the goyim. They count according to the sun. Eden change this too. They make it over. They transform it as a shonim. Shonim, the Loshon of the Rambam. The years that we count is Shnei Chama, the years of the moon. That means the moon becomes something that we count as a mitzvah. If das wird a Yiddish Zman, it becomes a Yiddish time, a Yiddish year, a Jewish year. And that's part of the mitzvah of Torah of Rishon Lachem B'Chot Shashana Hakedesh Lachem, which is the pasuk that we started with. This becomes part, even the sun. There are Veda from Kibush Oras Beruchnis, and we conquered the land spiritually. Unech Kibush Azman, not only the land which is Mokim, but also we conquered the time. Is Memamayer, the pale. This hastens in actuality as Kibush Eretz Yisrael as ein Begashmius, that the conquer of Eretz Yisrael should also be physically. The Bias Mashiach Tzedkenu was Mekabes Nitche Yisrael. When Mashiach will come, he will gather all the Eden. And that's connected to before because we didn't have this power. When the Demel V'Zayim Vashiva Shivtayich, then the Mashiach will come. David will return our judges, the Sanhedrin, Shinyonim, which what's the name of the Sanhedrin? Torah. So here we have Yisrael or Torah. It will be Mekabas Nitchi Yisrael, and they will come back, the Shoftim, the Kabbalah like before. So this is, we'll seek the connection between Eretz Yisrael and Yidden and Torah, because Mekabes Nitchi Yisrael, and the Shoftim will come back, which is Torah, Kabbalah Shena. Und es wird wieder sein Mechashvin v'Kevin Chadoshim Moabim Shonim Beretz Yisrael Apiaria, and they'll come back that we will calculate and establish the months and make the leap years in Eretz Yisrael according al Piaria. Now it'll come back that when it comes according to the seeing of the new moon, durch the Sanhedrin, through the Sanhedrin, was became of Tovkom is Belishkas Agozish Lehem Mizbeach, that their strength and where's their Sanhedrin really at its height is when they stayed in the area in the Beis Hamikdash called the Lishkas Hagozis, which is next to the Mizbeach, Shema Beis Hamikdash Beretz Yisrael, B'mheira B'yamein Mamish.